Assalamu alaikum and good morning, respected chair, distinguished scholars and teachers. Before delivering my presentation, I would like to express my deepest condolence for our former Prime Minister Begum Khaleda Zia. I am MD Abdur Rahim Badsha, student of Department of Political Science, University of Dhaka. Today I will present my paper titled Challenging New Patrimonialism Through Reforms, Bangladesh Path Towards Democracy. Since its birth, Bangladesh has unconsciously performed as a new patrimonial state. Different regime change, but the core characteristics remain similar. But now Bangladesh is passing through a crucial reform phase. So our research question is, can these reform initiatives divert Bangladesh from a highly new patrimonial state to a democratic state, or it will lead towards a new form of new patrimonialism? So what is new patrimonialism? New patrimonialism refers to a system where formal rational legal system coexist with a patrimonial and informal system. According to Heartland, there are two core features of new patrimonialism. First is centralization of power of the ruler. And second is merging the public and private objectives within the administration. So why we are calling Bangladesh a new patrimonial state? First, personocracy. Personocracy is an extended form of fascism and autocracy, where ruler becomes the state. She or he becomes the executive, becomes the only judiciary, or she becomes the only lawmaker of the state, which we observed in the previous regime. Traditional authority. Though elections occur, but there are no actual chance of the opposition to come into power. Rule of person over rule of law. The two core principles of rule of law is everyone is equal and nobody is above the law. But in previous regime, we have seen rule of person over rule of law. When anyone is murdered or any crime occurred, everyone seeks justice to Prime Minister. Particularistic decision over universal decision. So whenever any policy is taken, it was only for the particular group or people, not for the citizens of the state. Distribution of patronage. From the top to the bottom, from Prime Minister to a local level politician, everywhere there was a spider web of patronage. Nobody was free from this patronage system, where the principles were provide support and take advantage. So what are the causes of new patrimonialism in Bangladesh? Ineffective parliament. So the parliament of Bangladesh actually work as only a rubber stamp, where no actual debate or no actual policy making happen. So personalization of state power. The rulers of the state seem to consider the state as their own property. The state resources are their own resource. Party politics. The party politics of Bangladesh is not so much democratic. There are lack of democracy within the party. The bureaucratic control through patronage. The bureaucrats of our country are often very much aligned to the political parties. They do not serve the state or people, they serve the political party. The example of which can be the in last regime we have seen the cabinet secretary, 23rd cabinet secretary just resigned from his post because to become a member of the ruling party. he sacrificed and left his position of the highest position of the administration to just become a member of a political party. Manipulating judiciary. The judiciary is not free from the manipulation of the rulers. The decisions were often manipulated by the rulers. Personalization of law enforcing agency. Law enforcing agency was a meaning or a instrument for the ruler to strengthening their rules. The example of which can be seen in the July uprising or July revolution. Now, reforms and
Just
democratic
2 minutes remain.
Reform and democratic transition. Now we are in a phase of democratic transition. There are 11 reform commissions, but 2 or 3 main reforms will be discussed today. Decentralization of power. The most significant reform is the decentralization of power. Now nobody can be the party leader and the leader of the house or prime minister at the same time. This will decentralize the power, and the power will not be in the hand of a single person. Bicameral legislature. It is proposed to create a upper house in the legislature to create more balance, but the power of the upper house is not described. The upper house can only hold a bill only for 30 days or 60 days. If they do not pass the bill, it will automatically passed by the lower house. So there is no actual authority of the upper house. It will only be like a rubber stamp. So it will not be vocal for the people, rather it will be a burden for the people, more 100 people's burden to the citizens. And decentralization of power. We are talking that there will be 3 different persons in 3 important posts: prime minister, party leader, and the house of the nation. But this there will be no actual
Mr. Badsha, please try to finish your speech, please.
There will be no decentralization. Actually, 3 power will be remain in only one hand. So there will need greater consensus and among people and political parties about the reforms. Rather, this will lead to a greater and new form of nepatrimonialism. Thank you.
Thank you, MD Abdur Rahim Badsha. He really explained the reality of neo-patrimonialism theory. He mentioned that there are several problems in our political system in which we cannot establish our democratization process. Now I request Mr. Amina Bashar Onni to present her paper on From Democratic Promise to Political Control, Reimagining Leadership for Sustainable Democracy in Post-Uprising.
So, ladies and gentlemen, now we have also our co-chair. We have also our co-chair, Dr. Tariq Muhammad Tawfiqur Rahman. He joined us. So he is a professor, Department of Political Science, University of Rajshahi. So I'm welcoming him, and I'm requesting him to take his seat.
Honorable Chair, respected scholars, and ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. I am Amina Bashar Oni, an ex-student of this department, Department of Political Science, and currently I'm working as a lecturer in Presidency University. Firstly, I would like to express my sorrow for the departure of the great leader of Bangladesh, Khaleda Zia. May her departed soul rest in peace. And before starting my presentation, I would like to thank the convener of World Democracy Congress, Kazi Mahbubur Rahman sir, for his great initiative, as I believe that this platform will not only generate new ideas for sustainable democracy, but at the same time it will help the students of Department of Political Science to develop themselves in the research field. So this is a great thing. So let's move on to my research title, which is From Democratic Promise to Political Control. And the subtitle is Reimagining Leadership for Sustainable Democracy in Post-Uprising Bangladesh. So this is a big title, I know, but let's discuss over it. First one is what do I want to mean by post-uprising? Here I would like to focus on three major movements in Bangladesh. Firstly, the independence movement in 1971, then the movement against the dictator in 1990, and then the recent movement, which is July Revolution. Besides this, I would like to focus on several regimes and the democratic movement on those regimes. So, by sustainable democracy, I think that this is kind of consolidated form of democracy. As what we see in the history of Bangladesh from day one to till today, from the beginning, we have seen that several kinds of poor form of democracy, like I can say that illiberal democracy, populist democracy, compromised democracy, but yet we have not got that kind of consolidated form of democracy. So by sustainable democracy, I mean the consolidated form of democracy, which is hard to break. And I want to reimagine leadership for this sustainable form of democracy. Why I would like to reimagine leadership is because what we see from the leaders of political leaders of Bangladesh, this is from the what I see that this is from the responsible figures of our society and also from the general people of our society. All of them says several verses about the political leaders of Bangladesh, which is sometimes we see like Mojlum dhire dhire jalim hoye jacche, or sometimes general people says that jei lao shei kodu. This means that we see the regime change, we see the leadership change, but we don't see any kind of behavioral change or pattern change. The system remains the same. So here we see there is no consistency between the words and the work of the political leader. What we see that there is more inconsistency between the words and the work. So this is the position why I have chosen From Democratic Promise to Political Control, and my research topic has come from this. Research title. So in Bangladesh, democracy often appears vibrant during movements of resistance, but fragile when power is secured. And this presents re-centralization. What we see, there is a re-centralization of power, and we see a paradoxical behavior in the leadership process. So here the core problem is the cyclical form of repetition. What we see in this cycle, we see the movement or resistance against the authoritarian rule. Second, we see transfer of power. Third, we see gradual consolidation of authoritarianism, again, institutional decay, and finally, the democratic disillusionment. So this is the core problem, and my research question or the objective of my research, why I would like to find the answer of why do leaders emerging from democratic uprising often reproduce authoritarian practices once they are in power. So there are some sub questions here. This research would try to find these questions answer also, and at the same time my objective is to give some solutionary measures here. For theoretical discussion, I have developed some theoretical framework to discuss this. One is democratic backsliding, where I will go through the gradual erosion of democratic norms. Then revolutionary legitimacy, where moral authority used to justify unchecked power. And then leadership transition theory, where we will go through the vulnerability of post-uprising states. So these three theory will discuss and will explain the shift from promise to control. And the methodology to discuss this research or to analyze this research is qualitative analysis, and it will examine the institutional patterns, governance structure, judicial and administrative behavior, political developments after the post-uprising. And now, what are the key findings? The key findings are actually this leadership which we try to reimagine. There are some
3 minutes remain.
there are some constraints, which is the major finding. What we really see that the pattern, the system, where there is weak institutional accountability, compromised judicial independence, actually what we really see that democracy remains for those particular, the government and his or her supporters, not for the others. If we see the current scenario, if we look back the previous scenario, what we really see, democracy is only for the supporters of that particular leader who is in power. So here we see the compromised judicial independence, then we see limited administrative transparency, highly centralized leadership culture, and absence of internal party democracy, which is really very important. Now, let's talk about July Revolution. This has brought a new dimension in the political field. This has given us the opportunity to think twice about our country, and we are going through a transitional period. So July Revolution has helped us to ask the leadership and to question the leadership process. But we will have to remember that if without structural change, repetition of past failures can be again and again. So here we will have to focus. And finally, how we want to reimagine leadership. This will also work as a framework for sustainable democracy, which is we need institutional reform, decentralization of authority, civic participation mechanisms, and leadership ethics and democratic training. This will also be the policy implications. This will help for the policy implications, and this is required. And finally, I would like to say that the future of democracy depends not on how power is gained, but on how power is restrained. So this research will critically examine the journey from democratic promise to political control, and will contribute for broader debates on how transitional states can change and prevent cyclical authoritarianism and achieve a meaningful democratic consolidation. That's all about my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for Amina Bashar Onni. She really complete her space within her allocated time. She mentioned the real problem in our country, why we cannot achieve our goal. She mentioned that we cannot able to establish different types of institution. Institutionalization process is absolutely absent here in Bangladesh. Now I request to Abdur Rahman. Please, Abdur Rahman. Now, Abdur Rahman will present her paper.
He's absent, sir.
She is the next one. Dr. Mahbubur Rahman, Associate Professor, Sheikh Burhanuddin Post Graduate College, who will present his paper on legislation by ordinance, a study of Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan. Please, Rahman.
Assalamu alaikum and good mornings to all. My dear sir and chair of the session, I special thanks our World Congress Conference convener Professor Kaji Mahbubur Rahman, my life most junior teacher, and I am his always senior most student. I got him at my master's level. Sir, in his first joining of Dhaka University. My topic is legislation by ordinance, Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan. Actually, I always work or research with the legislation process of Bangladesh. Legislation by ordinances is the dominant mode of lawmaking, especially in Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India. Ordinances is a process of legislation by executive. In a sense, ordinances are constitutional fiat or legislation without legislation. The responsibility for the making the law formally rests with the legislature everywhere in the modern world. In practice, legislature share lawmaking functions with other actors, especially with executive. It is also called presidential legislation. Although the three parliaments formally have a common origin and follow almost similar rules and procedure, substantial variation can be observed. Where did this practice come from in this subcontinent? India, or more actually British India, has had a long history for ordinances. The provisions of the Government of India Act 1935 inspired Article 123, but the origin of the at least Indian Company Act 1773, Indian Council Act 1861, and Government of the Indian Act 1915. The average number of ordinances promulgated per year in much lower in India. Comparison these three countries, India is lower. Then in the other two countries, between 1950 and 2014, according to one estimated, only 679, these 64 years, ordinances were promulgated, averaging 10.6 per year. লোকসভা একটা স্ট্র্যাটেজি এটা দেখা গেছে, the propensity to promulgate ordinances has varied from one regime to another regime, one parliament to another parliament, one country to another country. In Bangladesh, the highest number of ordinances was in Bangladesh, the highest number of ordinances was laid in the 9th parliament, mostly due to 2 years of military backed caretaker government. However, the 19th Jatiya সংসদ in January 2009 did not approve all of the ordinances. 144 ordinances was on the table, but only 32 ordinances was passed into bill. The lowest number of the ordinances in case of Bangladesh, turned bills 2 was passed in the 8th parliament. That means Bangladesh's last 12 parliaments, only 8 parliaments hoche most lowest, two ordinances were passed, and highest 5th parliament. In the 5th parliament, the BNP was the majority party in the both parliaments. Presidential legislation is perhaps promoted in Pakistan than in Bangladesh. According to an estimate, 49 ordinances were promulgated during the tenure of 6th National Assembly 1988 to 1990, 89 during the 7th National Assembly 1992 to 1993, 354 during the 8th National Assembly 1993 to 1996, 133 during the 9th National Assembly 1997 to 1999, and 134 during the 10th National Assembly. This background of my research: ordinances are executive made laws frequently used in South Asia. Often bypass parliamentary debate, raise concern about democratic
Just 3 minutes left.
governance. The central research question is, under what circumstances do ordinances become law? Actually, I want to work in this research. Under what circumstances do ordinance become law? I will see it through focus on executive legislative dynamics. Methodology. Basically, this is a qualitative research design. 10 key important interviews, constitutional expert, political scientist, politician and analyst, content analysis of parliamentary documents. As it is, my work is incomplete, so expected findings: weak parliamentary oversight, strong executive dominance, partisan political incentives, ordinance often undermine democratization. Policy implications: strengthen parliamentary scrutiny, transparent review of ordinances, limit discretion executive powers, restore constitutional balance. My conclusion is, ordinances shape legislative trajectories, democratic institutions matters, reforms is crucial for democratic stability. Actually, when parliament and parliamentary process is weak, then ordinances are present. In Bangladesh history and Pakistan history, parliament was in crisis several times. So in Bangladesh and Pakistan, the number of ordinances more high. But in India, there are they have very limited. In this sense, we say sometimes also some rulers, like Bangladesh 9th Parliament, 144 ordinances was placed in the parliament, only 32, and among these, some law become new initiative. That means, for example, Human Rights Commission, law, the Information Act. These two laws actually originated from the by ordinance in the period of Fakhruddin and Moinuddin, but Sheikh Hasina's government, initially they proved that they take this initiative. Sometimes also some ordinances very important in national life, but it has 3 stages. We should see who take it, what initiative. Thanks for all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mahabur Rahman, for your presentation. Parliament is regarded as the central place of democracy. But in Bangladesh, what is happening in Parliament? Parliament could not able to play its effective role due to both opposition parties and ruling parties. Now I request to Sushanto Chandra Sarkar to present he may absent here. Now I request Dr. Shabbir Ahmed Sir, Professor, University of Dhaka, to present his paper on promoting non-violent political culture, all-party conventions, and democratization in Bangladesh.
Hello. Thank you very much. Good morning to you all. Before I start, I would like to express my deepest condolence at the demise of our great leader, the former Prime Minister Begum Khaleda Zia. May the Almighty keep her soul in heaven. I'm going to talk about actually political violence in Bangladesh, right? In the history, we come across 2 types of violence. The first one is what I call legitimate violence, which is done in the context of ensuring collective justice. When violence is done for the collective interest, for the collective justice, we call it a legitimate violence. The violence was involved in 1971 in the War of Liberation. So that violence, I call it a legitimate violence. But the violence, when violence is conducted for the parochial interest, like personal interest or partisan interest, that violence is illegitimate violence. And in my paper, I'm going to deal with this kind of illegitimate violence. I see there has been a alarming rise of political violence. Sorry. alarming rise of alarming rise of political violence in Bangladesh since independence. Okay, and political violence has come to such a pass at present that it is largely dominating the political culture in Bangladesh. So many parties, they believe that violence is important for getting public sympathy in their politics. So it's very important. So due to violence, many people are being killed, injured, many properties are being destroyed. We have recently experienced the violence of killing Sharif Usman Hadi, the potential political leader of our country. We have seen the vandalization of the newspaper office of the Daily Star and Pratham Alu. So this kind of violence definitely are illegitimate violence, and this kind of violence do not go actually hand in hand with peaceful democracy or democratization in the country. That's why in my paper, actually I'm going to argue for a new institutional mechanism for the political development of our country. This is my idea. I'm going to propose this idea, and that is multi-party convention, which I'm going to propose. In order to stop violence, in order to bring violence to a reasonable limit. As you know, that violence cannot be completely eliminated, but it can be definitely contained. It can be definitely constrained to a reasonable limit. So how is it possible? It can be done, but it is only possible by having political discussion among the political parties on a regular basis. And that's why I am proposing a yearly multi-party political convention. The parties which have been registered with the Election Commission will be sitting every year, and they will be discussing the issues of national importance. They will be discussing how to stop violence and what is the performance of their parties, of their respective parties in committing violence. So by discussing, by exchanging views of the parties, then I'm sure it will have positive impact. It will motivate the parties in the new light of politics. And so reasoning is very important. You know, discussion is very important in democracy. As we know that election doesn't necessarily ensure democratization. So we cannot only rely on elections. If one election after election, one after another, cannot ensure democracy. For peaceful democracy to be developed and to be thrived, you know, it's important to promote, to solve any kind of problems through discussion, through mutual discussion. So discussion-based democracy is a must. If we want to have a peaceful democracy, we can exercise this multi-party convention. And that can be organized by, you know, Election Commission can be the regulatory body for this multi-party convention. Election Commission can propose a set of rules of business for this convention. I'm not saying that only the political parties will be joining this multi-party convention. I have been inspired by Philadelphia Convention of the United States, which which was held in 1787 for drafting the Constitution of the United States of America. The representatives from 55 states, they came together, they sat together, and they finally proposed the Constitution. I have got the spirit from that Philadelphia Convention. Even the way, you know, Constitution is framed, that Constitution is made, you know, Constituent Assembly's role is also an important inspiring, inspiring institution for me to develop this kind of proposal. So finally, I want to say that, okay, let's go for multi-party convention. I'm sure the political parties, they will not accept it, because political parties are not interested to accept the new changes in politics. They don't want, initially they don't want any new change in the political system. So it will take time to accept this kind of convention. But if we raise our voice through different forums, and if we can establish the utility of having multi-party convention, then of course gradually political parties will be able to understand the importance of multi-party convention. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Sabir Ahmed sir, for your wonderful presentation. Really, you have focused on real problem of our country. Violence or culture of violence has been established in our political system. It is the main barrier of our political development process in Bangladesh. Now I request Lamia Islam Ohona, Shamira Naushin Shurova, student Shahjalal University of Science and Technology, Sylhet, to present their paper on From Uprising to Sustainable Democracy, Lesson from Bangladesh Struggle Against Democratic Backsliding. Please, Ohana, present your paper. Or Shubhra, please present your paper.
Assalamu alaikum. To my respected teachers, here I am Samira Naushin Shubhra, student of Department of Public Administration, Shahjalal University of Science and Technology, Sylhet. Now I am going to present my paper entitled From Uprising to Sustainable Democracy, Lessons from Bangladesh's Struggle Against Democratic Backsliding. It is important to clarify that democratic backsliding is not a sudden or democratic collapse of democracy, such as a military coup. Rather, it is a gradual and incremental process. Across the world, many emerging and even established democracies are experiencing a slow weakening of democratic institutions. This phenomenon manifests through subtle changes such as reduced institutional independence, constrained civil liberties, and the normalization of executive dominance, making it difficult to detect it at its early stage. Democratic backsliding poses a serious threat to democracy because it undermines institutions rather than abolishing them. While elections may be held regularly, deeper institutional processes with the judiciary, legislature, executive, media, and election commission become compromised. As a result, democratic legitimacy increasingly becomes procedural, masking underlying institutional decay. One of the key problems addressed in this study is the limited understanding of these systematic processes, particularly in post-uprising context, where public expectations for democratic reform remain high. Political polarization intensifies democratic backsliding by weakening consensus, building an institutional neutrality. Deep ideological divisions enable political and economic elites to capture institutions, marginalize opposition, and normalize executive dominance. The objective of our research to analyze democratic backsliding is in Bangladesh by examining its effect on the autonomy and effectiveness of key democratic institutions and by identifying institutional reform pathways that can support sustainable democracy and prevent future authoritarianism. authoritarian or fascist regime, to assess how procedural legitimacy, including elections and legal mechanisms, causing deeper institutional erosion and weakens administrative integrity, to identify the role of political reformation, constitutional initiatives, and youth-led civic engagement in restoring institutional integrity and promoting sustainable democratic governance. The rationale of the study lies in understanding how institutional weakness contribute to democratic backsliding in Bangladesh. Rather than focusing solely on electoral outcomes, our paper emphasizes the role of 5 major governmental institutions. These institutions form the backbone of democratic governance, and their declining autonomy and effectiveness significantly accelerate democratic erosion. Our study based on secondary data sources, as it has been conducted to examine the scenarios of democratic backsliding. Global trends of democratic backsliding. Democratic backsliding has emerged as a global trend affecting both emerging and establishing democracies. One of the most common trends is the manipulation of voting rules and electoral process. Elections continue to take places, but their credibility and inclusiveness are increasingly questioned. Another critical trend is control over information and independent journalism. As a result, free speech is constrained, dissenting voices are marginalized, and citizens are deprived of balanced and reliable information. Democratic backsliding also involves the restriction of non-governmental organizations and civil society groups. The weakening of the rule of law and judiciary autonomy is a defining feature of democratic erosion. Impact on the judiciary. The judiciary is the cornerstone of democratic governance. Politicized appointments have increasingly influenced judicial selections. Secondly, the erosion of judicial independence have resulted a broader loss of public trust. Delayed justice remains a critical concern. Prolonged legal proceedings and case backlogs deny citizens timely access to justice. Impact on legislative. The legislative branches play a vital role in representing citizens and holding the executive accountable. The rise of dominant executive has significantly overshadowed legislative authority. Limited parliamentary control has reduced the legislature's ability to scrutinize government's actions. Oversight mechanisms such as parliamentary questions, standing committees, and budgetary review processes are either underutilized or politically constrained. Restricted legislative debate, often facilitated through digital and procedural tools, has narrowed the space for meaningful discussion. This practice undermines deliberative democracy and marginalizes dissenting voices with the parliament. Impact on executives. On a democratic system, the executive branch is expected to govern within constitutional limits and remain accountable to other institutions. However, in the context of democratic backsliding, the executive increasingly emerges as the central driver of the institutional imbalance. The concentration of the authority fosters authoritarian governance practices. Decision-making becomes personalized and hierarchical, often bypassing democratic procedures and institutional constitutions. The violation of constitutional principles and widespread misuse of power further deeper democratic erosion. Impact on Election Commission. The Election Commission is a central institution for ensuring electoral integrity and democratic legitimacy. The independence of the Election Commission has been compromised through ruling party influence and the presence of a politically loyal bureaucracy. When electoral administration aligns with the partisan interest, and the Commission in neutrality is questioned and undermining its credibility as an impartial authority. Impacts on media.
Just 3 minutes left.
Weak media reform and biased journalism further reduce transparency. political affiliation, ownership concentration, and lack of professional accountability undermine journalistic integrity. As a result, the media shifts from informing the public to legitimizing power, masking institutional decay behind controlled narratives. Digital tools are increasingly used for propaganda and the manipulation of public opinion. The discussion of the study reveals that the weak performance of the key government institutions significantly accelerates democratic backsliding. At the same time, political power is increasingly becoming repressive and arbitrary. Governance practices are less guided by constitutional norms, and more driven by discriminatory authority. After all the discussion, it is clear that without comprehensive institutional reform and active civic engagement, democratic backsliding will continue to deepen, threatening long-term democratic governance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shurova, for your presentation. You mentioned that elites are dominating our different institutions, particularly our parliament. It is absolutely true. Real person are not get opportunity to contribute their role in different institutions. Now I request we have already completed our now I request Dr. Samul Haq, Senior Lecturer, Daffodil University, to present her paper or balancing regionalism and democratic actors in a multipolar world, evidence from transitional democracy in post-July 2024 in Bangladesh.
Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone. First of all, I want to express my condolence to the demise of the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Khalida Zia. Good morning everyone. First, I want to express my gratitude to the convener of this conference for arranging a very good conference in the Dhaka University. I'm Dr. Samul Haq. I graduated from the University of Dhaka from the Department of Political Science in 2014 and 15. Then I completed my second master's and PhD from Ankara Yildirim Beyazit University, Turkey. My topic is balancing regional rivalries and domestic actors in a multipolar world, evidence from transitional democracy in post-July 2024, Bangladesh. First of all, introduction. You know that the world has experienced bipolarity and unipolarity. You know that after the Second World War, the world system was bipolar. Then the world transformed into a unipolar system. But especially after the 2008 financial crisis, Chinese economic system was superior. The superior system of Chinese economy crystallized that attracted different countries, especially neighbor countries of China, to be balanced with China and maintain a balanced relationship with USA and China. But Bangladesh is not the neighbor of China. Bangladesh is particularly dominated by India. So for long we have experienced that Bangladesh's relationship was so strong with India, but economic attraction or economic superiority also attracted Bangladesh. You know that though before coming to power by the former ruling party, Bangladesh Awami League, there was already good relationship with China, good economic relationship with China. But especially after coming to power, Bangladesh Awami League maintained a stronger relationship, economic relationship with China, comparatively with India. Okay, so if we go to the other countries' experience in South Asia, you know that Nepal and Sri Lanka, recently, you know that Sri Lanka, a Gen Z uprising happened there, and Nepal also a Gen Z uprising also happened there. But their experience is different. Their domestic dynamics is not so divergent like Bangladesh, or their domestic problems is not so dangerous like Bangladesh. They have maintained a delicate balance between India and China, but our balancing system is being very difficult because of divergent types of domestic dynamics. Okay, especially when the transition comes after the July uprising, Bangladesh's challenge has been multiplied because India is pressuring, and China, there is a India is already dominating Bangladesh, and you know that actually we have no other ways to go beyond India. While India tries to keep Bangladesh under their control, China want to do the opposite thing. So there is a big challenge for us. So when this type of transition happens, this challenge multiplies, and that is making a bigger challenge for a successful democratic transition. So that is the main topic of my study and my paper. Actually, my study followed a qualitative content analysis method based on secondary data. Mainly, I tried to find two question answer. What is the nature of regional rivalries before and after the July uprising in Bangladesh? And what is the impact of domestic and external dynamics on democratic transition in Bangladesh? Okay. So if I focus before the July uprising, you know that there was already some competition between India and China in terms of the BRI, you know that Bangladesh Belt and Road Initiative. And under this Belt of Road Initiative, there was another proposal, BCIM, Bangladesh, China, India, and Myanmar Corridor. Primarily, China attracted Bangladesh to join with these projects or this BRI project. But because of the opposition from India, then Bangladesh was compelled to abandon this project. And on the other hand, India tried to attract Bangladesh to the Asia-Africa Economic Growth Corridor. So at the same time, China is trying to attract Bangladesh by different types of economic projects, and India is opposing, for example, port building and financial project and different types of opportunities that is being provided by China or offered by China. India is also doing the same, and they are trying to offer much more attractive or same opportunities. So that is creating a rivalry between India and China in Bangladesh. It was already existed before the post-uprising, before the uprising of July. Now I will focus that after July uprising, what happened in Bangladesh. You know that Seven Sisters issue has been very focused in Bangladesh now. Because our interim government, Professor Dr. Yunus, when he discusses Seven Sisters issue, after going to China, it creates a very big debate in the regional politics. Okay, because it is being discussed in China, Seven Sisters issue. So that is making the rivalry between Bangladesh and China more stronger than the before. And you know that recently, after July uprising, China has invited many political parties of Bangladesh, especially Islamic political parties, and also they are getting more closer with BNP and other nationalist Islamic forces of Bangladesh. So that is creating a clear and more stronger competition or rivalry between India and China in Bangladesh. Okay, so not only this, this is not only the fact, actually there was very divergent political issues or domestic issues in Bangladesh, because you know that on the issue of July Charter, there was a very disagreement on the July Charter, because BNP and interim government, BNP and Jamaat, BNP and pro-July student rift. We have experienced this type of, because there was very difficult to come to an agreement on the July Charter and other political issues, to arrange a free, fair election and to a true reformation in Bangladesh, to institutionalize Bangladesh's democracy. So we are facing these types of very divergent domestic demands. If Islamic political sections, they have some certain demands. Nationalist political parties, they have some certain demands, and also pro-July students, they have some certain demands. So that is creating a very divergent demands. That is making very big pressure on the interim government. So our current interim government is at the same time tackling the domestic divergent demands and also the regional rivalry, the pressure of regional rivalry. Because India is very serious to keep their foothold in Bangladesh, and China is very serious and adamant to that. Our interim government has created different types of reformation committee.